Hey, this is Kevin Knebl in beautiful Colorado Springs, Colorado. Although when people see that view behind me, they tend to think it's Arizona, but that's actually Colorado Springs, Colorado. That's Garden of the Gods. And I'm here with two of my great friends and partners in crime who speak and train and coach and consult and write books all around the world. Two of the most fun people you're ever going to meet. So I'm here with Mark Matteson, who's up in Gold Bar, Washington, beautiful Washington State. And Mark speaks all around the world. He's got a 10th level black belt on speaking, coaching, and I think he's written about a couple of hundred books. And then Patrick Snow in beautiful Maui, Hawaii, who also speaks all around the world. He overmarried way above his pay grade. And he's written a bunch of books and he speaks and coaches and he helps people in lots of different ways, including getting their books published and getting the ideas out of their head into books. So I'm here with two amazing guys, and really we're just talking. It's just three guys who speak, train, coach, consult for a living, just kind of kicking ideas around, talking about some life experiences, some experiences in the speaking world, what that's like, a little look behind the curtain or opening the kimono a little bit. And we're not really quite sure where this is going to go, but I bet you it's going to go someplace fun. So, hey guys, how are things in your neck of the woods?
Patrick, I've heard you've had a little weather.
Yeah, we had about a year with no rain in Hawaii, in Maui anyways. So everything got really brown and burned up, and then this last about 3 weeks we've had a ton of rain. They're trying to catch up and make up for it. So that's been a good thing.
But it's still warm.
I don't know, 60 degrees at night. It's kind of cold when you're used to 75. So problem in Hawaii is we don't have heaters in our house,
Right.
and most of us don't have air conditioner. So we're kind of like in that strange thing that if as long as it's between 60 and 85, we're good. But if it goes north of that or south of that, then it's challenging.
It's middle of February, toward the end of February right now, and we had 71 degrees in Colorado Springs yesterday. Unbelievable.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Well, I live in the Pacific Northwest, where it rains 268 days a year. We have two seasons, wet and dry.
And
You know,
unfortunately, the
Mark,
wet season is longer, right?
Well, and our state flower is algae. So,
Mark, when I lived on the Oregon coast in that little village of Oceanside, it averaged 100 inches of rain a year.
and
Mm.
Seattle only has 32. It's a misnomer because Texas has 32. They just get it in 3 days. Flash
Right,
floods.
right, right, right,
We
right.
get it a 16th of an inch at a time.
I actually loved it on the Oregon coast. Most people fled the coast during the winter because of the storms, but I loved it. I mean, 80-mile-an-hour winds with rain, and you could feel the house swaying a little bit. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I felt like Indiana Jones.
Well, that's one of the most beautiful parts of this country is that Oregon coast.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
great. So, what should we talk about, guys? How can we add value to anybody that's watching this?
Well, Patrick, see if you disagree with me. We should ask Kevin how he
Uh-oh.
goes about getting gigs without doing advertising or marketing. I mean,
Yeah,
that
I'd like to know
should be the
that.
first question.
Well, um, I'm a simple man. Wasn't that the beginning of the Notebook, right? Right. So so I figured out many years ago, years before I got into the speaking business, that pretty much no matter what industry, job title, role, function I have, I'm really in the conversation and relationship building business. And that's not me trying to sound like a motivational speaker. It's just that because my mind is very simple, I've noticed over the years, I tend to see things that are obvious quicker than most people. I'm certainly not any smarter than anybody else. I just have a slower mind. So I tend to kind of reduce things down to their simplest parts. And I figured out about 30 years ago, no matter what I'm selling or what I'm doing or what function I'm doing, at the end of the day, none of that's ever going to happen without getting into conversations with people and at least establishing a basic relationship, if not nurturing relationships. So that's my preface to the answer to the question is I realize deeply from the moment I get up in the morning till the moment I go to bed that I'm in the conversation business. So therefore, any human being that crosses my path, I'm not trying to sell them something or make them my new best friend. I'm just trying to start a conversation and nurture it a little bit. Often people say to me, "But Kevin, you have so many conversations going on. Some things fall through the cracks." And I say, "But that's not the worst problem in the world to have." Right? So I've kind of noticed over the years, if I can get a lot of conversations going, inevitably something good is going to happen. Now we can get into how I move the conversation from small talk to speaking engagements, but I guess what I would want people to hear first off is, are you aware that you're actually in the conversation business? You're not in the elevator pitch business. You're not in the marketing business, and I'm not putting down marketing or elevator pitches. There's a time and a place for those things. But I'm making it even simpler than that. Are you aware that if you don't get conversation started with people, ain't nothing going to happen? No way. You guys have
Hey,
any
now I'm
thoughts?
going to interrupt you for just a second.
Yeah,
You have what I call three magic words.
I do.
And would you mind sharing those three magic words?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember what my three magic words are, Mark.
ALT?
No, no, like, trust.
Is that, oh, that all things being equal, people do business with and refer business to people. And what's interesting is every time I get on stage, and I'm kind of like the Grateful Dead of speakers. The Grateful Dead did over 6,000 shows and they never did the same show twice. They never did
Right.
the same set list twice. Some speakers get up on stage and do Hamlet, and hey, God bless them if that's what they want to do. I'm just not that guy. So,
Me.
the reason I'm saying that is I never give the same presentation twice, but you can always pretty much guaranteed that in the first 5 minutes, there are one or two things that I'm going to say. And I always look at the audience and I say, is there anybody in the room that would disagree with the statement that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust? And I've never had anybody in any state, even New Jersey or any country I've spoken in, that disagrees with that statement. But just because somebody intellectually understands that does not mean they understand how it works in the real world. I could read 100 books on riding bikes, but until I get my fat butt on the bike, it's all theory. So, yes, Mark, at the core of everything I do, it's all about creating sincere and authentic know, like, trust. And again, not to oversimplify this, but a farmer doesn't necessarily know which seed is going to grow, but he knows if he goes out in the field and plants a lot of seeds, there's a thing called the law of averages, something's going to grow, right? So I just look at what I do from that same farmer mentality. If I get now, of course, I've gotten much better over the last 30 years at being able to direct conversations, but I'm starting right at the beginning saying if you can't get somebody into a conversation, you're dead in the water.
It
But
all starts there.
yeah, but most people don't realize that, and they're really not trying to get into conversations. They're trying to get into thinly veiled or not so thinly veiled sales pitches. And it's really about just slowing down and connecting with the other human being on a human level.
I like to say, look, first of all, how much time do we have?
Right.
Okay. And before we get started with the hard questions, how did you get started in your business?
Yeah.
And that leads to 10 or 15 minutes of them talking and me listening. And that's what I'm hearing you say.
Well, yeah. I mean, why would it ever be any more complicated than that?
How much do you
In
charge? And,
essence,
no. Let's go back to the beginning.
Right.
Fade to
and
black.
Would you walk up to a woman you've never met before and say, "Hey, you're hot. We should get married"?
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense. I mean, Patrick could do it because he's handsome, but you and I, Mark, we're never gonna get away with that.
We're a creepy old guy when you do that. I don't want to be creepy old guy.
I just want to be old guy without the creepy.
Yeah. I want to be the Dutch uncle, the one who says you're fat and you need to work out and eat better. Yeah, I get to a certain age, it's like at 20,
Yeah.
we worried about what people thought of us.
Yeah.
At 40, we realized we don't care what they think. And at 60, we realized they're not thinking about us at all.
Man,
because they're thinking
man,
about
is that true.
themselves, right? Because they're thinking about themselves.
There it is. Bob's your uncle.
It's that man, that is so. Do you know what I've come to realize more and more as the years go by? the primary reason why most people don't enjoy life or succeed or do what they want to do, or however you want to say that, the primary reason, the way it looks to me, is they're just obsessed with what other people think.
Right. It's fear of criticism. It's what I call the long walk back.
Yeah.
Long walk back.
That first date the first dance that you went to when you were 14 or 15, you're
Yeah.
standing against the wall and all the girls are on one side and all the boys are on the other.
Yeah.
And my friend goes, man, I'd dance with her. I said, you should go ask her. He goes, I'm not going over there. And I realized what he wasn't afraid of was rejection, which is the obvious answer. He was afraid of the long walk back.
Right.
In front of his buddies.
Right. The fear of criticism. It's
Right.
the Six Ghosts of Fear, Napoleon Hill. It's the first one. We worry about what people think. I don't care. Everybody's always glad to see me. Someone I arrive and someone I leave, but they're all glad.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Byron Katie says everybody loves me, but most of them just don't realize it yet.
Yeah.
No, BB King said nobody loves me but except my mama, but she could be jiving too.
Oh, so yeah, it's all about conversations and building relationships, right? So I kind of take it to an extreme, and then I just stay. And then once I start conversations with people, I just from time to time I just shoot them a message, maybe every couple of months, and it's nothing complicated. It's no reverse psychology, mind control, ninja stuff. I'll just text somebody and say, "Hey, Patrick, you just popped into my mind, so I just thought I'd say hi. How you doing?"
Just thought
What I just said there made all the SEO AI marketing geeks brains explode. Kevin, it couldn't be that simple. You want last year, a friend of mine, a guy on Facebook who I haven't talked to in years, but he hired me for speaking like 8 years ago. I saw a picture of him and his wife and daughters, and I just texted him. I said, "Hey man, great picture of you and your wife and daughters." He replies, "Can you speak at my conference in October?" No, 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 thank you. No, hey Kev, nice to hear. Just reply. Now, I didn't send him the message, complimenting him and his family to get asked to speak. But if I hadn't started the conversation, nothing would have happened.
And then you replied, "Is your wife and daughter going to be there?" Right? That was your answer.
So Patrick does something I think is really smart.
Yeah.
I sent him a referral some time ago, and the guy hired Patrick. And the next thing I know, I got $300 in my Venmo account.
Okay.
And that's genius. That's so simple, right? And almost no one does that.
Well, I just feel like if someone's going to go out of their way, like Mark, I think you were double booked. You couldn't do 2 gigs in 2 states on the same day. And so my cost of acquisition for that was zero. And had that referral not came in, I wouldn't have gotten any opportunities. So I want to pay a 10% referral fee. And I'm thrilled. You've done this like maybe 6 or 8 times over the years, and I'm so very grateful. But
I ain't gonna stop.
Yeah. But I think kind of to answer that question in terms of how to get speaking gigs without marketing, I've always sent copies of my books to meeting planners once I know they have a date, a venue, a theme, a budget, and they haven't booked somebody else. Because if they book somebody else, I'm wasting their time. So I want a date, venue, theme, location, and they're still looking for that speaker. Then I send the book, and a lot of chances I get the gig. And then I look at the engagement, which again is no marketing other than the cost of the book and some postage. Then once I get the gig, I look at it as an audition, and I'm auditioning for future opportunities. So Mark Victor Hansen, as a young man, when I was a young man, he taught me that you must ask to get. You must ask to get. So at the end of every single speech, before I tell my Hallmark story, I always say to the audience, before I finish on my story on fear, I just want to give you a quick overview of what I do. And it's important to know that 100% of my speaking engagements come by way of referral only. So if you've benefited in any way from this presentation, I'd be honored and thrilled to earn your referral. So come see me in the back of the room. And I remember once speaking in Lima, Peru, and the guy in front of me was just crushing it. He was just way awesome. Everybody loved him. And I kept waiting for the ask, waiting for the ask, waiting for the ask. And he's like, "All right, I'm done. Thank you." And there was no ask. So then I went up on stage, and we had the microphones in. I was telling my jokes in English, and then the translator, butchered my jokes into Spanish. And after 5 seconds, a lot of times there were no laughter. So I thought I was bombing the whole day. And then at the end of this presentation, I did the ASK to GET. And I had about 10 meeting planners come around me afterwards. Hey, can you do this? Can you speak here? One woman said, we only got 10,000. Can you come speak in Guatemala City for Pepsi Cola? And we're only going to pay airfare from Los Angeles. And I was like, well, yeah, I can do that, but let's not talk fees. And then the other guy, he's like, how did you get 8 or 10 meeting planners to show up afterwards? And I got 0. And my answer was, they assumed that you're the billionaire, trillionaire, untouchable, and you've got 900 gigs on your calendar. And I let them know that I'm unemployed and I'm looking for my next gig. So I asked and I received. So that's how I kind of do that, Mark. And I mean, and Kevin. So I think that's a great question.
100% of the putts that are short never go in. Unassertive salespeople have skinny kids. I did this thing in Vegas, right? I don't know, 15 years ago. And at the end of my talk, I said, look, here's my normal fee. The first 2 people who give me their credit cards, I'll come out to your facility and everyone will get books. And I'll even give you a 20% reduction on the fee. But it's limited to the first 2 people. And this guy stood up and he threw his wallet on the stage. And I caught it in midair and I said, MasterCard or Visa? He said, MasterCard. And I took the card out and I threw it back. And the guy was in Caldwell, Idaho, just right now, I think was the name of his company. And
isn't it great that there are no rules and you can do something like that?
oh, and and I get gigs pretty much every time I speak for the very reason Patrick just said. I asked for it, a true story. I'm in Vegas. I just did a keynote. I'm coming down the escalator. This guy's going up. I knew who he was, but I wasn't friends with him. He hands me his credit card and his business card across the escalator. And I go, what is this? And his name was Paul. He said, I want you to speak at our company meeting. I said, hold on. And I ran down and then I went up to his side and then I got all the information. And I've been working with him for 8 years.
Wow.
I mean, sometimes it just happens. But to Patrick's point, you have to ask.
Yeah, of course.
Because if you don't, they assume that you're a billionaire, trillionaire, untouchable, celebrity, best-selling author, and that you've got, 1,000, you're booked out till 2030. And we got to let them know that we don't have that.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, I think, that are new to the speaking world that want to put on a front, an image, and that they're more successful than they are.
Right.
And it's just so much easier to be human and just let people know I'm available to help. If you think I can deliver value, we should discuss it. Yeah, it's just so much BS out there.
There's the fake it until you make it. And I think people see through that.
Yeah.
Right. It's a facade.
Everybody knows that they should be sincere and authentic, but then they take courses on how to look sincere and authentic when it would just be easier to be sincere and authentic.
I know you guys do this. I use self-effacing humor.
Of course.
And the authenticity comes out of that. I was in Florida talking to 500 contractors and I'm doing a book signing afterwards. And this guy comes up and he goes, hey, I really liked your self-defecating humor. Really? Self-defecating? I said, that's a shitty thing to say. And he went, oh, crap. And I said, exactly. I said, but Hoss, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. And I just gave him one of my books. I go, put your money away.
Because that story is worth like $1,000.
One of the best things about being a professional speaker and author and whatever is, people ask, where do you get your material? Well, the whole life experience is all material.
Yes.
It's all material,
Hey, I had a colonoscopy, right? It was my first one. I never had one. This is like years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, hold on, before we get started, these 2 nurses, an older one and a younger gal. And I said, this colonoscopy nurse goes to the bank after working a double shift. She races there and she gets there just before it closes and she opens up her her purse and gets her checkbook out, and she goes to cash a check, and she realizes that it's not a pen, it's a rectal thermometer. And she said, "Great, some asshole has my pen." And the older nurse said, "That's disgusting." I said, "I know, but it's a tailored story to colonoscopy." She goes, "Count backwards from 100, pal." And I realized I'd made a mistake, right? She can do anything she wants after I'm under.
Right.
That stuff happens. And if we capture it in our journal,
Yeah.
we can use it going forward. And then I test the material at the bank, at the DMV, at the post office to see if it's worth keeping
Right.
before I ever weave it into my presentation on the next time I talk.
You are much more professional than I am. I just wing it. I just roll it out on stage like, okay, let's see how this one's going to go over. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you are a true craftsman.
No, see,
I've seen your journals. I've called you out of the blue just because your name pops into my head. And hey, Mark, how you doing? Oh, I'm in Vegas. What are you doing in Vegas? Oh, I'm sitting in a cigar lounge having a cigar, going back over my presentation earlier today. What worked? What didn't work? Putting it in my journal. I'm going to tell you, I haven't met any other speakers that do that.
I was literally in Vegas last week and I walked by that cigar bar and I thought of that very story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a craftsman. That is a craftsman.
But here, think about it for a minute. If you're not asking, what did I do well? What landed? What stories? What exercises? What, you know, role playing, whatever it is, what
Right.
worked that I should do again?
Right.
And then what do I need to add or delete? That other story didn't land. I think I offended some people. I'm not using that one again.
Right.
Well, and the reason is you're not a teacher. So many speakers think they need to teach and preach and educate so the audience can learn. You're an edutainer. You're giving out great material, but you're doing it with your stand-up comedy routine, and that's why people throw their wallets at you and throw their credit cards on stairways because they love your sense of humor because you've mastered it perhaps better than any other speaker in the world that I know.
If you could
Thank
make,
you. But if we make ourselves the punchline,
yeah,
it makes us human. Back to Kevin's point.
right. If you can make people, and you guys know this, we're preaching to the choir here, but if you can make people laugh while they're learning, touchdown, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you're right, Patrick. I mean, the three of us have been on countless stages and seen many, many, many other speakers. And yeah, a lot of people know their content inside and out, but it's like watching grass grow or getting a root canal.
And they're on stage, do this, do that, do this, do that. And Mark's like, well, let me tell you what happened the other day at the bank. And then they're like on the edge of their chair.
Right, right, right. Well, Patrick,
Okay, so here's my answer to the not really doing advertising or marketing. I have a podcast. There's about 120 interviews on that. I had a guy call. I was a guest on something called Contract Revolution in Canada, and this guy talked. We talked for an hour, and I thought, Canada, I'm not going to get anything. Nothing's going to happen from this thing. I've gotten 2 speaking engagements as a direct result of doing that particular podcast. And this one guy calls me from Kelowna, BC, and he said, I listened to all 120 of your podcasts. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, I'm in my truck a lot. And this is a small contractor. And I thought, this guy has like 2 employees. There's no way he can afford me.
right.
But I sold myself in the podcasts, first as a guest and then as the host. And I'm starting to see a return on that investment in terms of revenue. But I didn't start it for that purpose. I did it because I like interviewing people
Right.
who are smarter than me, that have written great books or have a fantastic story.
You're a value generator.
Look, it's really simple. How can I improve the quality and quantity of my service to other people today? That's the question I ask all the time.
That's a servant's heart. Yeah.
And then the ideas pop open. This guy I interviewed yesterday, he said, I've been on 1,300 podcasts. And I said, how do you do that? He goes, well, when I release a book, I do 3 podcasts a day for like 90 days. I'm like,
Oh,
this is just the first question. We're not even going to get to the next 2. So you realize that we're probably going to have to do this again.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it as many times as we want to do it. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about associations for a minute. I think you guys have more depth in that realm, although I have worked with a lot of associations, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how working with associations probably leads to engagement, to engagement, to engagement. I know, Mark, you do a lot in the HVAC world. When I first met you and I learned that, I was like, what is there, like two conferences a year in the HVAC world? Man, was I naive? Holy crap. You go to
It's
Australia, you go to the UK, you go to New Jersey, you know.
and I don't just work with the contractors, which I do. It's distributors and manufacturers in that industry as well, and I've worked with virtually every manufacturer.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was just finding a niche, and initially it was contractors. And then I'm speaking to contractors, and there's somebody in the audience that's executive director of a particular association, and they say, you'd be perfect for here's my card. And it kind of goes from there. But these associations, they talk to each other. And it's a pretty small world. And if you do a really good job with Chicago MCA, that's where I'll be. Next week, I'm doing 2 days in Chicago with this association. I've been doing that for 25 years.
Mhm.
And they're the gold standard for education in associations. So when Southern California finds out or New Jersey finds out, next thing I know, my phone rings. And if it slows down, I reach out to those associations because I have a list of them. So, and they talk to each other.
Right. Patrick, do you have any kind of niches in different associations?
I've done I've done a ton of association work and I really love them. And the reason why I love them, and this might sound selfish, is they're flush with cash. Like they have their budget. They've got like 50,000 in their meeting budget, a year in advance, and maybe their speaker budget is 10,000. And they call me 11 months in advance, or I call them in 11 months in advance. We're like, yeah, we can, most we can pay is 10,000. And my answer is, well, I'll give you the prepaid discount, but you got to pay in the next 30 days. And they're like, no problem whatsoever. Let me just send the money. And it's because they already have that. When I've gotten pushback, they're like, well, typically we do 50% down and 50%, a couple weeks before the event. And my answer is, okay, how about we do this? Instead of 5K now and 5K later, let's do 9,500 upfront in advance. And then you take that other 500 and pay the MC or get flowers or do something else. And they're absolutely delighted. And 100% of the time, like, great, let's send you the 9,500 right now because we can save that 500 because the money is sitting there. It's in an association bank account and they're ready to pay. So I've always loved working with them for that reason. They're super nice to work with. And one of the things that I always try to do is say, look, I'm going to be there for the day. So as long as I'm there, you own me. So in addition to the keynote speech,
Right.
would you like me to do a breakout speech at no cost? And by the way, the night before the event, I'm sure there's some kind of cocktail reception. How about I show up to that and I'll just do a 5-minute little humor bit just to get started. I'll tell people I'm the speaker tomorrow. Please come laugh at my jokes and whatever. And I'll give a couple of inspirational quotes, maybe tell a couple, one or two quick stories. They're like, why would you want to speak at the cocktail reception? And I can't really tell them the truth, but the truth is that the spouses are always there. So let's say there are 500 attendees at the association conference, but those 500 are traveling with somebody. So typically those 500 would come to the cocktail reception. So now I'm talking in front of 1,000 people, and I would invite the husbands and the wives to come hear me speak the next day. And they're just sitting in their hotel room doing nothing all day, getting a massage, getting a hot tub or a whirlpool or whatever. But the reason why I want them there is I want 1,000 people to hear me speak instead of just the 500 association members, because every one of those spouses, they work for a bank, a mortgage company, real estate, another whole industry. So those are just some of the things that I love about them. But I would say that the association market is my favorite. And the second thing I'll say is you don't need to know anything about that association. You just need to humor, entertain, and inspire. And case in point is I once spoke to the SHRM, the Society of Human Resources Association members. And this was like in Pennsylvania, that Steel Town, Pennsylvania. I forget the name of it, like an hour north of Pennsylvania, up, old Steel.
Allentown, Bethlehem. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those. And they're like, "Oh my goodness, Patrick, this was so amazing. We loved you." And I said, "I don't know anything about human resources." And they said, "We don't want you to know anything about human resources. We want you to humor, entertain, and inspire." And that speech led to about 7 human resource speeches all the way through Central and South America because of that. So I would say that my favorite market, hands down, is associations because there's huge numbers. They always pay up front in advance. And it's not like, if you don't help us achieve our sales metrics for the year, then this was going to be a failed speaker presentation. They don't care because everybody's just there to have fun.
Patrick, and guess who buys the books? The wives, not the men. Women buy 90% of the books in this country. Men don't read.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the reasons I recorded my books on Audible, because they'll literally go, and it goes all the way back to this guy said he buys a copy of Freedom from Fear and he hands it to his wife and he goes, "I'm not going to read it. You got it on cassette?" And then this was a long time ago. So I immediately went and recorded it on cassette and I offered it as a package. And then the next generation came along and said, "Do you have it on CD?"
Yeah.
I said, "No, but I will." And then now it's on Audible. I don't know what's next after that. I guess we just have to think about it and it pops into our brain. I don't know.
When you're born, they put a chip in your head and then they just
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. And Patrick, to your point, 99% of my clients, I give them a 10% discount on that 10,000, right? So they only pay 9, but it has to be up front and it's usually within a week or two of the agreement being sent.
Because they have the money, correct? Like they have the bank account. It's already full.
And I had literally had one person yell at her husband and say, "You realize he's giving us 10% off. So who cares when we pay? Pay the guy." She's like yelling at him. And the guy I learned that from was the worst speaker I ever heard. He was terrible. I mean, people were leaving the room with this guy. And I'm speaking in that same room after, and there was 100 people there. When it was my turn, this guy got done. There were like 25 people left. But he said one thing that changed my business. I offered 10% down or 10% off if they pay me in advance. And I wrote that in my journal, and I've been doing that ever since.
What you guys, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your skirts. What you guys just shared in the last 10 or 15 minutes, that could save a speaker a decade of learning how this business works.
The hard way.
It could also save them getting the ability to make their mortgage payment and their car payments by having all that money up front in advance. And my favorite thing is I always put 7 to 10 days from the date. And about 99% of the time, they come back like, "Oh, Patrick, we feel terrible. We're so sorry. We can't do 7 to 10 days, but we can do by the end of the month, 11 months in advance." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course." And they think I've made this concession for them. And
well, I'll do it this one time, but not anymore.
Could you imagine if somebody had taught us all this stuff and we hadn't had to walk through the minefield?
Well, I learned this the hard way because one time I got a 50% deposit and the other 50% was due the day of the event. And then after the speech, I heard, "Oh, I'm sorry, we forgot our checkbook back in the office." And my answer is, "Your office is like 4 miles away. Just go get it." "Oh, no, we can't leave the event." And then it was like 6 or 8 weeks. 6 or 8 weeks of nonstop, collections efforts to get paid. And then I made a decision. I will never again get on stage until I've been paid in full. And that's when I learned what the speaker bureaus do. And the speaker bureaus are 50% down, the other 50% 2 weeks before the event. Right. And if the speaker bureau doesn't get paid that 2 weeks before the event, they call the speaker and say, "You're not getting on the plane." So now they have that leverage. But I'll never do that again because that was like 8 weeks of wasted time playing collections officer.
Patrick, I was born and raised in New Jersey where they eat their young. I know a couple guys that could deal with that person and make it look like an accident,
Kenny the Nudge and Jimmy Bag of Donuts.
And Tony No Neck. Oh, well, guys, I think we've got maybe another 5 minutes or so. What else could we impart that would help somebody?
I think following up afterwards, not just with the reimbursement invoice, but what I try to do is send them an ebook that I think they'll like, and as a thank you. And please feel free to forward it to all of the attendees.
Right.
It's worth $50, but I had such a great time. I want them to say, "Wow, he's still delivering value after we're done."
Can I throw a thought on that?
Yeah.
So this kind of goes back to what I was saying in the very beginning of the conversation today is out of sight, out of mind, right? So, hey, Patrick, have you ever hired an electrician or a plumber?
Yeah.
And think back to when you hired an electrician or a plumber or a landscaper or somebody to do some kind of work around your house. They did the work, you paid them, and then they went into the witness relocation program. Have you ever hired a plumber that even just once a year, just one, not I'm not even going to say once a quarter, just once a year, they send you a card that says, "Hey Patrick, we appreciated working with you a number of years ago. Hope you're having a nice life." Not a sales pitch, not, "Hey Patrick, Merry Christmas. By the way, we're doing a special this month on unclogging your toilet." Not about them, but just staying. So I already know the answer to the question. Nobody does it, right? So one of the things I decided to do when I first started this whole crazy speaking thing about 20 years ago was I just put a Word doc, and I can't even, I'm an idiot when it comes to computers, but I know how to actually make a Word document a little bit. So if you hacked into my computer, you would see a Word document for 2007, 2008, 2009, all the way up till now. And it just is a list in chronological order of every engagement I've spoken at and the contact person that I dealt with. And at least once or twice a year, I just send them a card, not about Kevin Knebl, just completely out of the blue. "Hey, Mary, long time no talk. Hope 2026 is your best year yet, Kev." And I can't tell you over the last 20 years how many people have rehired me without me even asking to be rehired or referred me because somebody said to them, "Oh, we're doing a conference and we need a speaker," and they think of Kevin Knebl, but they think of Kevin Knebl because Kevin Knebl sends them a card once or twice a year or a text message or an email just to be human, not as a thinly veiled sale. It's just staying top of mind.
Yeah.
Keep strict accounts and stay in touch. That's what you're saying.
It's
So
so
I got to
simple.
tell this story. This is for Patrick's benefit. I'm in the Nashville airport and I'm entering names in my database for my electronic newsletter that goes out once a month to 9,000 people, right? And Kevin calls and he goes, "What are you doing? Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Nashville entering names in the database." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, because they want to get my easy." And he goes, "No, why are you doing it? Why don't you pay somebody, you cheap bum?" Right? Loosely translated. And you could be reading a book. So since that conversation, 15 years ago, or whenever it was,
Yeah.
I pay somebody to enter the names in the database, and I'm reading Hidden Potential by what's his name? Adam
Gray.
Grant. Yeah. So thanks, Kevin. I'd still be entering names. I just got back from Vegas. There's 100 names. I'd still be entering them.
And now you don't have carpal tunnel syndrome as a result.
And Bob's your uncle. There you go. My son does it gladly, and I pay him $2 a name. And it's like rent money, you know?
Okay, you said, and Bob's your uncle twice. Tell us the backstory on that joke. Where does that come
Jason
from?
Statham, the actor, he's British. And that's a phrase, he said it in a couple of his different movies. And since I'm half British, right, spent time in England as a kid, I think it's just what it means is, and there you go. Right? So I say it all the time. So my 4-year-old grandson is watching a movie with his mom, and the movie ends, and he turns to his mom and goes, "And Bob's your uncle." So she sent me a text saying, "He's a sponge. He's going to say whatever you're saying, so be careful."
Right.
And
Well,
I
the
just think
truth
it's a
is-
great phrase.
Truth is, probably everybody has an uncle named Robert that's called Bob for short. So love it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a
guys,
fun thing to do.
this has been great. Not sure where this will end up, but I'm sure if people watch it, they'll get value from it. And let's do this again. Let's make sure we do this before too long. I think there's a lot of value. I'm getting a lot of value from listening to you guys. And yeah, this will help a lot of people. Any last words, Mark or Patrick?
Yeah, I only have a half a page of notes. You guys suck.
We'll get better.
Well, we'll turn the recording off, and I got a couple ideas to share it, and then we can hang up after that. So I just thank you, Kevin, for putting this together. Right now, there's probably 100 years of speaking experience between the three of us, and so what a beautiful gift to whomever listens.
All right. We're going to say goodbye. I'm hitting the stop record button, and then we're going to talk about everybody that's watching this behind their backs. Everybody have a great day. Or as Mark Matteson says, make it a great day unless you have other plans.
And Bob's your uncle.
And Bob's your uncle.